Rosa's Turn by C.M. Robinson. Rosella lives alone in a 3-bedroom house on the edge of Ferryvale at 86 Mahogany Avenue. She used the second largest bedroom for herself, the largest room she'd turned into a personal library, and the smallest she ignored. She works at the local bank 3 blocks down the road, but had that day off. For Rosella, the day had started like any other. She woke up, turned the coffee pot on, then emptied her bladder's nightly reserves. She drank her first and second cups of coffee while she waited for the mail. She'd just finished stirring the cream and sugar into her third cup when she heard the familiar metal clang. Rosella grabbed her bathrobe, it had been cool the previous days, and opened the door to collect whatever bills and junk accompanied her package. The temperature outside felt comfortable, neither too hot nor too cold for any type of outfit. She looked up at the branches of the old oak near her drive. The lethargic sway boasted of a gentle breeze. Pleasantly surprised, she threw her unnecessary bathrobe onto a nearby chair. "Good morning, Rosa," Frank chirped as she approached the mailbox. A small dispute, too quiet to hear the words, broke out at the trailer park across the road. "Good morning," she said, wrinkling her nose, "but it's Rosella, Frank. I have never liked the shortened version of my name." "Oh, my apologies," he said, then turned towards his husband smoking on the porch. "I told you it was Rosella, love." "It's okay, I can forgive y'all this time, just please don't do it again," she said, loud enough for Mike to hear over the squeak of her mailbox. "We're going to have a picnic by the woods for lunch," Mike called. "Would you like to join us? It's too beautiful to stay inside." "I don't know," she responded. "I go back to work tomorrow and kind of just wanted to laze around. Though since it's probably the last day before winter really sinks its teeth in, I may do my reading in the backyard." "Are you sure?" Frank asked as the two walked back together. "You might accidentally have fun, you know." "Yeah." She held up a small package that had been in her mailbox. "I just got a new book, Persistent and Growing Unease, a horror anthology by H.T. Waite. Her prose is delightfully eccentric, and I can't wait to finally dive right in." "Yep, that's Rosella," Mike laughed as Frank joined him on their porch, eager captive of the next good book. He tossed his finished cigarette into the designated ceramic container. "Maybe we can go to this next week." Rosella stopped at the bottom of her steps and held up a yellow flyer advertising the Winter Solstice Festival. Printed on the bottom was a number to reserve a booth. "I don't think so, but we'll see if anything changes," Frank said in parting. Bad things only happened during a dark and stormy night. All the books say so. It was a dark and stormy night, the print always reads. It only stands to reason that a lovely day couldn't possibly go wrong. If they could, then scary scenes would begin with, "The day was beautiful," right? Rosella used a small magnet and pinned the flyer on her fridge before opening all the main windows to air out the house. Her third cup of coffee had cooled enough by now to drink while she read. She only had to decide where she wanted to set her lawn chair, preferably where the sun wouldn't shine directly onto the pages. Leaving everything on top of the back steps, she gathered her lawn chair and began looking. The grass felt soft to her bare feet as she began to wander around the yard in search of a place to set her chair down and read. However, the rustling leaves and bird song led her to daydream about things she could do to make her backyard more comfortable and inviting. A fire pit with some lawn chairs in the center, flower beds along the edge, a picnic table and a grill close to the house. Rosella abandoned the lawn chair as she wandered to the very back of her yard, where she turned around and looked back the way she came. Perhaps a line of fairy light strung over the table, or those strands that look like old-fashioned bulbs. A few strategically placed solar lights could mark clear pathways. As she took another step backwards, the ground gave out beneath the outer edge of her right foot. Sharp pain burst from her ankle. It wasn't designed to bend that way. With a shout, she lunged forward to remove the weight. Rosella had no doubt her ankle had broken, though she couldn't explain how she knew if you'd asked. She remained like that for a moment, in pain and lightheaded, before carefully rolling onto her back. Another wave of pain which caused her head to swim passed before she sat up. She'd stepped in the hole that she was sure she'd filled last spring to avoid this very situation. A small bucket with gardening tools sat next to half a bag of dirt right where she'd left them. She could only assume the soil hadn't been compressed enough and her weight had caused the surface to cave in. Rosella's ankle had already begun to swell, though the pain had eased into a steady ache. She knew walking was out of the question, and she'd have to crawl back to the steps for her cell phone. Unless her neighbors were still home, then she could yell out and get their attention for help. "Frank? Mike?" Rosella hollered, loud enough to echo. "Hello? Is somebody up there?" a young girl cried out. "Yeah, my cell is on the back steps. Can you get it for me? I broke my ankle." Rosella recognized the voice and tried to identify or find the owner. "I can't get to it," the voice sulked. "Where are you? I can't see you." Rosella knew that voice. She almost remembered the name of the little girl it belonged to, but not quite. The birds had gone silent, probably frightened off from when she yelled. "Down here, in the hole. I've been stuck down here, I don't know how long. If you could widen the opening and help me out, I could run over and get your phone." Rosella carefully shifted herself next to the hole, laid down on her left side to look inside. The opening was about the size of a saucer and didn't seem too deep. She could see a small shadowed figure moving around the bottom. "How'd you get in there?" she frantically called down. "Are you hurt?" "Please, just get me out," a pitiful whine designed to tug at the firmest of heartstrings. "There's something else down here. I can hear it moving." "I'm going to crawl over to the back steps and get my phone. We'll be able to get somebody here that can help both of us," she reassured the small figure. She'd gotten good at ignoring the pain, which she was sure she could continue doing as long as she moved carefully and took her time. "No, don't leave me," she shrieked. "Promise me you won't leave me all by myself." Rosella looked at the tempting bucket of gardening tools nearby, then at the daunting distance to her back steps. "Okay, I promise." "Do you have anything you can dig with? Even a stick would work with how soft the dirt is. It's not a lot that needs to be cleared." "I have a trowel and some kind of hand-sized rake. It's in a bucket right here. Give me a minute while I crawl over and get them." The girl didn't answer, but Rosella could hear the sound of her quiet sobs. Maybe the girl didn't even hear her. She thought how terrifying it must be to be trapped down in the earth for hours before somebody found you. Leaving her so that she could be alone in the darkness felt cruel. She leaned down so that her mouth was inches from the opening and repeated herself louder. The sobbing softened. "How did you get down there?" Rosella asked again when she returned with the tools in hand. She began to dig around the edges, using the hand rake to help loosen any roots in her way. Surprisingly, there were no large rocks. "I'd found a small tunnel while walking home and wanted to see where it went. I thought if I found something cool, people would like me." "Why not go back the way you came?" Rosella paused her digging. "I can't." The voice sounded so young. "I can point out north and such for you. It'd be easier than climbing out of the ground." The hole had gotten a bit wider near the top, but she could tell it was going to be a couple more feet before she broke through to the tunnel. "The dirt fell in behind me. I thought if I kept going I would find a way out. Then the tunnel stopped," she hiccuped. "Guess it's a good thing my foot opened this hole," she laughed, wiping her forehead. "My name is Rosella. Yours?" "Rosa." She didn't laugh. "I'm sorry I laughed. You must be terrified down there." Rosella used the trowel to scrape the dirt back from the opening, though some fell away into the hole. Something about that name rang a bell, summoned a mixture of sorrow and trepidation. They sat in silence for some time, the birds unlikely to return, while Rosella continued to dig. At first, she considered singing a song with Rosa to cheer her up, then decided her singing voice would just cause them both distress. Instead, she considered what to do afterwards. The mayor would need to be contacted, so the tunnel entrance could be found and blocked off. Otherwise, others may be trapped and less fortunate than Rosa. "I think that's wide enough," Rosa crowed, snapping her back to the present. "I just need you to reach in for me." The crisp air remained eerily quiet, not even crickets that normally began chirping this late in the day. Her neighbors would have returned long before now. What would they think if they looked out a window and saw her? Would they even be able to see her or know she needed help? Rosa's parents must be worried about her. How far did she come? They were probably searching in the woods for her, thinking she'd wandered there chasing the lights. Maybe that's why she hadn't seen her neighbors yet. They'd joined the search. She'd have to call Mark once this was finished and let him know. Then she can tell Mayor Cordelia about the tunnel. Let's do this. She laid on her stomach next to the opening and stuck her whole arm through. Little fingers barely brushed against the tips of her own. "A little further. I almost got you that time," Rosa urged. "To reach you, I'd have to squeeze my shoulders in," she called. The hole looked wide enough to get Rosa out, but small enough that Rosella might get stuck. Then who would help them out? "I need to get help, or at least a rope or something to pull you out." "No, just you. All I need is for you to reach down a little further. Please." "If I get stuck, I could plug the hole. Then we'd have no air and suffocate. You'll be okay." Rosella began to crawl towards the back steps, upsetting her ankle, though she moved carefully. "Snake! It's a snake! It's going to get me!" Rosa cried out in fear. Rosella couldn't let a little girl be killed by a snake. Rosa needed help, and she needed it now, and it was all up to her to do something before a little girl got hurt. If Rosella had just stayed inside to read, or even went on a picnic with her neighbors, things would have gone differently. She wouldn't be there to help a little girl trapped in the hole in her backyard. There wouldn't be somebody to tell the search party where she was. The girl, Rosa, would have probably remained trapped. She slid down to her waist, ignoring the fear and anxiety clawing at her heart from her very core, both hands stretched out in front of her, reaching, searching. Tiny fingers slapped her hands. Each time they missed, she inched herself a little further in. Then the small hands clamped onto hers. "Gotcha!" they both cried out. The two of them began to pull on each other. Rosella began to slip into the hole as Rosa climbed up her arm like a rope. Rosella fell in, her ankle once again screaming in rage as she landed, and Rosa crawled out into the fresh, crisp air. Rosella scrambled in a panic. Her eyes quickly darted around the hole. The only thing she found was a small square board and a very small skeleton in a lavender dress surrounded by beads. There were no signs of a snake. She looked up at the little girl, now standing above ground. "Okay, we're okay. Go get my phone off the steps and bring it here so I can call for help." Rosa's tears switched off as she looked in the hole she'd just escaped. "Thanks again for the help, Rosella," she smiled. "What are you doing?" Rosella's blood grew cold as Rosa knelt above her and began to pat the dirt back into place. Rosella reached up to climb out. At first she reached high enough for her palms to brush the side of the hole she'd dug. "It's my turn," Rosa said, breathing in the cool air. "I know you don't remember, but it will come back to you." At first she struggled placing the dirt. Then Rosa began to grow, and it gradually became easier for her to reach. Rosa continued to age and grow until she was an exact replica of Rosella. "Please, don't leave me here." Rosella began jumping in an effort to reach the opening again, but it seemed to move further from her reach with every jump. "There's a board in the bottom. We think it's always been there," Rosa called down. Rosella looked so much younger now, just like Rosa did when it was her turn in the hole. "You should remember everything tomorrow. That's when I'll come back and fill the hole." "If I remember whatever I forgot tomorrow, wouldn't you forget everything you remember tomorrow?" Rosella reasoned. "No, it's the act of filling the hole that removes the memory of what we are. We have to forget. It's the way our fetchin' life works," Rosa said as she patted the last clump of dirt into place and stood up. "It's how we keep our promises." Rosa brushed her dirty hands against her dirty shirt, eager to get that hot shower she'd obsessed about for the last 6 months. The sun made its way towards the horizon as she walked away, ignoring the muffled cries of a little girl from the hole in her yard. By the time she'd reached the back steps, she could no longer hear Rosella's pleas. Tomorrow, once Rosella remembers, it will be easier to walk away. Rosa noticed the yellow flyer on the fridge that had come in that morning, pinned right next to a photo of a small girl in beaded braids, the original Rosella's last photo. Taking turns each day, as they'd promised not to leave her alone until she'd been found, they'd done their best to lure the search party to the little girl. However, will-o'-the-wisps were better suited to luring people than the spectral doppelganger of a fetch. As the girl's time ran out, they'd made one more promise, one that made them different in ways they still didn't understand. They'd promised her that everyone would get to watch her grow into an old woman. Fey creatures always kept their promises. It was literally impossible for them to break one, though how promises were fulfilled could often be unexpected. Once Rosella had been found, she told the town about the tunnel, and it was sealed off to keep others safe. Rosa looked back to the flyer, noticing a number printed along the bottom for those who'd want to set up a craft booth. She unlocked her cell phone. "Hello," Mike answered on the second ring. "Hello, I was wondering if you're available next week." "Depends, what do you need?" "I want to set up a booth to sell some of my crafts at the Big Blue Barn at the Winter Solstice Festival, but it would need your truck to help transport everything." "I'll pay you, of course," she said. "Who needs what?" Rosa heard Frank's effeminate voice ask in the background. "It's Rosa. She wants to know if we can help her transport and set up her crafts for the festival next week," Mike answered. "Obviously," Frank answered, and Mike repeated his response to her in case she hadn't heard. "Thank you so much. I'll give them a call in the morning to reserve a booth. For now, I'm in desperate need of a shower after mucking about in the yard all day." She ended the call. Rosa lives alone in a 3-bedroom house on the edge of Ferravale at 86 Mahogany Avenue. She used the second largest bedroom for herself. The smallest room she'd turn into a craft room, and the largest she ignored. She works at the local bank 3 blocks down the road, but had that day off.